What is going on, everybody? This is Mike from the Last Corvette. So this video is a response to a question that was left in one of my comments on a video that I did, I don't know, about 2 years ago, 2 years plus. It was actually for a C6 Gen Corvette, and I was showing the steps needed to program keys, extra keys, or just setup keys, right? Then you need your DIC, and DIC is a digital information center. It's located right at the bottom of the gauge cluster on C5 and C6 Gen Corvettes, very similar gauge clusters. And DIC could be a driver information center or a digital information center, but regardless, it displays information like, you know, tire pressure, oil pressure, temp, miles, mileage, miles to go, stuff like that. Very important information. You need it on. So this individual is having issues. I don't know if I brought up his or hers username is John Taylor. C5 Gen Corvette with a non-working DIC. So what are the options to remedy the problem, fix the problem? Well, you have several options. Option one, you can go to Google and go on Google and type in gauge cluster repair, and you're probably going to get, you know, hundreds of various companies that do it. There is a company here in Michigan that does it nationwide, right? They service gauge clusters, they repair them, but you have to be cautious of one thing. They do charge a minimum, and a lot of times the minimum is a lot of money. Number two, you also have to remember that who's doing the labor, meaning who's taking the gauge cluster out, them or you, right? So if it's a non-local place to you, you're gonna have to do it, package it, and ship it out. And then obviously shipping there and back is gonna have to be covered by you as well. So what I found out, the easiest way of doing it is if you go on eBay, type in the year of your Corvette. So whatever it is, C5 or C6. You will see a bunch of different gauge clusters. In the description, it will show what the mileage is. And the mileage sticks on C5 and C6 Corvettes. The mileage sticks to the cluster, meaning that the miles are stored on the cluster, on the main board, okay, and not in a computer. Well, they're also stored elsewhere, but on C5, C6 Corvettes, the miles will be stored on the cluster. In other words, let's say you buy a cluster, let's say a 98 cluster, and it has 80,000 miles, and your vehicle only has 50,000 miles. What you can do is when you receive that cluster, you can take it to a gauge repair facility or even a dealership, and they will program your cluster to read whatever the actual mileage is on your vehicle as it sits. I'm going to be very clear about this. Yes, I'm telling you that the mileage is stored on the cluster, and if your vehicle has 80,000 miles and you put a cluster in with 30,000 miles, that's on you. That's a wrong thing to do. You should always update your cluster to read the proper mileage. But one thing people forget is, yes, the cluster does store the mileage and it transfers over as soon as you feed the power and the vehicle is started, but you also have other onboard computers that also store miles, and those computers will show the actual mileage of the vehicle. So it's not that easy to cheat, especially on newer vehicles. All right, so you get a cluster installed, you get the cluster programmed, and that is the easiest and the cheapest way of going about it. Because like I said, most gauge cluster repair facilities will charge you a minimum, and I think the minimum is like $75 to maybe $150. I don't even know anymore. I used to deal with this local place in Saginaw, Michigan, or maybe it was Flint. I think it was Saginaw, like 10 years ago. But regardless, once they start replacing parts and, you know, putting in obviously labor hours, that price will go up. And a lot of times you can get yourself a really good working cluster off eBay for a lot cheaper. Yes, you'll have to either pay somebody to uninstall it, or maybe you can do it and save the money on labor, and then a base fee to get it reprogrammed to display the correct mileage. So yes, that's the way you fix it, either through a repair facility or just buy a used working cluster and your DIC will work. There's no programming. Literally, you pull it out, you unhook your harnesses, and then you just reverse the process, start the vehicle, and the only thing that's going to change is obviously the mileage and also the display message that shows up when you start the vehicle. You'll have to obviously set that up. But you can also, if you're lucky, let's say you have 35,000 miles on your vehicle and you find a cluster with 35.5 or 36. If it's within, I'll say 1,000 or 2,000 miles, I would be okay with it. It's not like you're rolling your mileage back, you know, by 50, 60, 70,000 miles. So anyway, that's how you do it.